everybody, it's Leon with Bigfoot Okanagan. Spring and summer is gone, the fall's here. I've been on the road for 4 months and I've driven about 15,000 kilometers. Met some really good people. I've had some pretty bizarre experiences. I thought I'd finish my year off. You know, it's been a little over almost 2 years since I started the Bigfoot online stuff. And I thought I'd go back to the first site that came in as a report for me. And I want to be very specific in what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. Because this particular site is about this particular site. And it's not about anybody else's site. I'm not making any comments on anyone else's work that they've done out there. But as a researcher, and because my channel is for those who are new into this topic, it's imperative that we teach the next generation those 4 principles that I always talk about, which is about a healthy skepticism, formulating a hypothesis, critical thinking, not criticizing, and sincerity, that I can be sincerely wrong. And I've always tried to come from a very specific approach. I'm not here to try to read into things, but I want to share this site with you. The reason why I wanted to come back to this particular first site was because it was the first thing that I got involved with in regards to online Bigfoot stuff. Basically, I was using online resources to help me negotiate whether or not I was coming into areas that were a higher chance of a degree that I was going to be finding signs, evidence that Sasquatches were in the area. And the first video that I ever did, which was called Jack's Site, and it's I think it's on the east side of Penticton, and he had posted some stuff on a site, and he and I both started the same way in regards to online education. And it's imperative that you do good research. And I have done quite a bit of research in regards to what I discovered and found here, and you have to update the data. Thomas Steenburg and I, we were talking about one time when he had seen a coyote along with, oh, sorry Thomas, I'll type the other person's name below here. But he had talked about coming across some vocals in on the flats that John Green had asked him to check out, and him and his buddy went and discovered it, or went to the area, heard the calls, went and investigated the calls, and it turned out to be coyotes. So he had 2 long-term, or fairly long-term investigators by that time that visually saw coyotes making certain calls. And that caused some problems for the certain parts of Sasquatch researchers and Bigfoot researchers, even close allies to both those guys. And I had notified him that I, as well, so that makes 3 of us, have seen coyotes make specific calls that you wouldn't expect that they would come out of a coyote's body. But I can't think of any better way than the way Thomas described it. It's like their guts are being choked out of them. And it's not a violent call. It's I think it's, to me, it might be a duressful call, because one coyote's calling out to another coyote to try to get the location to get them to come to where they're at. Now, the reason why I'm sharing that is he got a lot of flack for that. But the key part about any investigation is data collecting. And the data needs to be upgraded from certain calls that we have heard, and now that we've seen what makes those calls, that has to be upgraded, because there's no use for us to follow information that is no longer correct. Thomas believes in calls, I believe in calls, but specific calls seem to have turned out to be not kind of what we're hoping for. I did a series on my Sasquatch rambles last year about the big fear. And what the big fear is when you're starting off on this whole process, that you come across something, declare it as one thing, and you turn out to be totally wrong. And I'll probably clip that in here at one point, maybe right here, so you guys are reminded about that. Thing is, I like facts, and you know, I might be sincere about my belief about seeing something, but you know, especially when your adrenaline's running, like when I did that video, when your adrenaline's running, you're going to be hoping and hoping and hoping and hoping, so it's going to go through that kind of filter. And I can be sincere about what I think and believe, but it doesn't mean it's right, meaning that it's true. And I have to be open to the idea of that. So I want to let you know something. Bigfoot Okanagan is going to be totally fair with you. Now, what I mean by that is, in my office, you know, I have people from all over the place that come in and see me. And what I basically do is my whole education stuff is about your sense of worth about yourself. So behind me on my white wall, I have this phrase that says, "Can I trust you with my truth?" And what my truth is what I believe about myself at the time. Because if I can't trust you with the real Leon, then I have to present to you a different Leon. In other words, I have to come over here and present a Leon that I think you guys will keep watching my videos. A Leon that won't be rejected because I was wrong about something. A Leon that gets his strokes and his ego boosted because he knows everything about Bigfoot. I'm not going to do that, Leon. I didn't do this Leon, because this Leon found this one. And that's awesome. And if it's man-made, I'll fess up to it. Will it suck? Oh, it will totally suck. Will it hurt my feelings? It will totally hurt my feelings. Will it be embarrassing? You better believe it. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll post it and say, update, it's man-made. And I have to do that. And you guys have to do that. Now remember, up to that point, when I first got involved in, I've been dealing with the topic of Bigfoot for a long time, but I've just never been online or went public with it, I guess. And for you new guys who are watching, or if maybe just come across my channel, you're going to be doing like most of us did, which is go online and find out what people are saying about Sasquatches. And you're going to see tons of YouTube videos of hypothesis, of speculation, of ideologies. For me, I just stay out of that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to show you guys what I'm finding and update the information in case I'm wrong on something, because it helps out with helping us see what we're needing to see. When it comes to any system, you guys know I really harp on systems theory. Any system, the problem with any system is once you come across a new idea and that idea is contrary to what's out there, it causes problem for the system. So you are the system. There's four kind of positions out there. If you're watching me right now on this little screen that you're watching, the first position is you're going to either be offended about what I'm about to show you. You might be going, oh, finally, someone has said this. Secondly, you might not trust it. And then the fourth one is the new viewers who are watching this particular channel, my particular channel. My particular channel is for beginners. And the reason why is 50 years we have been doing this, but there's something we're missing. I think most healthy researchers who've been in this and out in the field and out in the bush, like a lot of us have, are trying our best at trying to negotiate what it is we are dealing with and how do we find them, Sasquatches, better. But a bit of the glitch is we need to upgrade some of the information. The calls, one of those calls that Thomas had heard and I had heard, and the other witness had seen it, that has to be upgraded. A lot of times people in systems feel threatened when people are pointing out things that are contrary to their belief system. And I've commented about the problem with the brain, because I deal with it all year long, is the human condition needs a belief system. If you don't have a belief system, your life becomes exceptionally bleak. And the idea about the brain, it's a programming system that is wired to verify any conscience within conscious intent. If Leon is here and he believes something and he has now told his programming system, his brain, that this might be what's going on here, then my brain automatically starts looking for information to validate that that hypothesis that Leon might be developing. But I got to be cautionary about that because I can be wrong. So where I'm taking you back to is what was called Jack's site. And when I walked into this, everything about it was everything that everyone on Sasquatch, not everything, not everybody too, I want to limit that. There are different schools of thought out there, but there's a huge school of thought regarding structures. And I have done extensive research for this area. Now, extensive research for me isn't just going into a site. I just got to be a cautionary note. There's a bear in the area right now, so I'm going to be periodically looking over my shoulder here. I'm carrying bear mace right now, but if you see me doing that, that's why I'm doing that. But in regards to when you're doing research, it's not just about being on site. You have to go out and discover things via people who live in the area and ask them some really good, solid questions. So the site I'm going to show you has some interesting stuff. And again, I'm just reinforcing this. This is pertaining to this site. And some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is going to be pertaining to other sites that I have come across and the research that I've done in those sites. And this particular site, I know how it all got going. So we're going to kind of cruise through it a little bit, and I'm going to show you some structures. I'm going to show you some structures and why they look the way they look, how we know that they're man-made. Now the reason why it's important, and I'll just stop right here, right now, in my belief hypothesis about Sasquatches, is they do use the forest to communicate with each other. But I don't think what we're viewing personally in regards to the structures we're interpreting as being Sasquatch are necessarily Squatch structures. That can cause some problems for people out there. I'm not talking about any of your stuff. I'm just talking about what I found. I have found stuff that, and I call it, there's a difference between man-made structures and Sasquatch structures. The imprint looks totally different. And some of the researchers I talked to this year and showed them some stuff that I had, they kind of get the idea what I'm talking about. It doesn't look like it's man-made. It doesn't have the same rhythm of being touched by a man. It's got a contrary look to it and a bizarreness to it, but there looks like there's an intent also attached to the structures or the tree formations that I come across. I've always said about if I don't see a Squatch doing it, I can't say it's a Squatch. Until I see it, until we get some more eyes on this and see that it's a Sasquatch that actually builds it, there's no way any of us can say it's a Squatch. So we got to up our game. I'm not sure what it's going to take, but we have to up our game in regards to being fair because we have people watching us. And we want to help them. We don't want to, I've mentioned it lots of times, I don't want a lot of people following me right now because I didn't come in to join the Bigfoot community. I came in to look for Sasquatches. And as much as I say, I have a bit of a tone about the negativeness that I've experienced because I'm also researching what happens to somebody who comes into the Bigfoot community. I'm also researching the Bigfoot community as a system. And they're not bad people, it's the bad system. And so, let's see how this goes for you guys. So when I first walked into this site, I just want to point out something here. That rock's been pulled. When I walked into this site, it is a site of structure galore. And this was the first thing that Jack had showed me, which was this accumulation of tons debarked logs, large sticks. I think in my original video there's a huge 16-foot stick that kind of sticks in the middle here, kind of like that one right there, but it was right in the middle. And I was following the lead online. That was everyone was saying was, this is a good chance that this stuff is Sasquatch. And here you had some other kind of bizarre stuff, and these have all been shaped and formed a little differently than before. This one's definitely new. It's definitely snapped off the top of this tree right here. See it right there. That's obviously been pulled down by the wind. But all this structure stuff looks like it's been shifted around again. And then there's more. You can see all this dry wood around here. Some more stuff over there. Looks pretty good stuff. That structure in the background there, that one right there, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. I actually did a bit of a test and put a watermelon on the top. These were added on over here a little bit later. And this happened and evolved over a course, a year and a half, I think. You have these arches right up here. Again, when you're looking at this stuff on the YouTube, I mean, look at that combination there. Bends all the way down. This one bends all the way down the other way. It's pretty sophisticated looking. Again, you have a slash or another accumulation pile over here. You have this great structure right here. And you can see there's another one through here. I'm trying not to show you one specific structure because I want to use that as a backdrop when I talk to you guys. So this was all moved over. And again, what I want to, all I'm saying is, you had these all leaned up in around here. I am not saying to anybody out there for your own personal sights that you're not seeing what you're seeing. But I think it's important that information gets upgraded. So, you have all these sticks like that. It looks pretty good. And I've appreciated a lot of people. I have totally appreciated a lot of people who've helped me negotiate and navigate a lot of stuff. Here's another one. And I can tell this has been changed a lot. But it helped me negotiate and be honest, not just with myself, but with my viewers. This is the best structure right here. Just see if I pull that back. Oops, pull that back a bit more. A second here. So I'm doing this video to let you guys know that when I came in here, I took this hook, line, and sinker. The main reason I took a hook, line, and sinker was because of what I was finding online about stuff that's supposed to be evidence for Sasquatch. And I need to upgrade this data. And it's okay if you want to keep your belief systems. I'm not saying anything about anybody's personal sites. I'm just talking about this particular site, because I've done a lot of follow-up on this site. Because I like facts, and I like dealing with facts. I'm not threatened by facts, other than the embarrassment of maybe being wrong, but I've mentioned numerous times, this is not about being right or wrong. Or if I'm worried about being right or wrong, or worried about looking good or bad, then I am not going to be a very good researcher. Everything is about learning. And I will learn what is right, and I will learn what is wrong, and I will learn what is good, and I will learn what is bad, and I will upgrade you guys. And we will negotiate and navigate together as we try to find solid signs for us to educate others of how to negotiate and navigate what we're looking at, what we're looking for, so we can get, and I totally believe this, especially with technology today, Sasquatch is on film at a distance. This camera here I just discovered when I was out with a BFRO researcher, that it zooms 1,500 times. I can zoom in to the craters of the moon, and I can actually. So it gives me a great scope. But again, this part here, I mean, this looks pretty good stuff. This looks like pretty good stuff, you guys, right? Now I'll fill you in. Just give me a sec here. I just want to set up some stuff here. Okay, so when I came into this site, like I said, and I told you guys, I'm always going to be as honest with you as I can. And I can only be as honest with you as I can in regards to how honest I am with my own self. A lot of you guys who know me personally know that I have negotiated and had to go through a long process of really coming back to a sense of true reality with myself. Now, the reason why that's important is if I don't have a solid reality, my brain again will trick me to project onto stuff that I'm hoping is there that might not be there, and that sucks. And it totally does suck. So when you look at this behind you, you look at all that stuff I showed you, I'm going to narrate a bit more about it. All this has been done by our local First Nations band. Now, how do I know that for sure? Well, how I know that for sure is I came up here on a regular patterned basis to find out what this is all about, just like you guys would be doing at home. The other thing I did was I contacted the First Nations in the area, in the Penticton area. I also contacted them in the West Bank area, which is the bands that are in the Okanagan area here, all the way up to Merritt and Kamloops. And it's imperative that you guys, when you are doing research, that you open up and not just stay in your head with a hypothesis. You want to prove whether or not it's Sasquatch or it's not, and you want to prove whether or not what you're seeing is what you think you're seeing. I've mentioned a couple of different times about ways of training yourself. You know, I just posted that idea about the coyote loon challenge, which was go outside, if you can, and film a coyote howling. Film a loon calling on the lake. You would think those would be fairly simple to do, but they're going to take some strategy on your part. And the practicum of doing that, now those have nothing to do with Sasquatches, but the practicum of doing that is giving you tools, patience, frustration, moving a camera once they do the call. That's happened to me. How do you get close enough? How do you be quiet enough? How do you make sure your camera's ready? I came across a 450-pound black bear up by my property the other day, and I had all my camera stuff right beside me. Just came back from a report, and had it right there. But it was on daytime. By the time I got my cameras reprogrammed, that was in seconds. By the time I got my cameras reprogrammed for the dusk, the bear had gone into the forest, and that was in seconds. So all of it's about strategy and education. I've mentioned before about being online, not just to go online for Sasquatch. Go online and look up bushcraft. Train yourself about bushcraft. Build something using bushcraft. What was the other one too? Is go online and look up sites on tracking. Understand exactly how tracks work. Understand how tracks evolve, especially in different weathering conditions. It's important that we do that if we're going to be taken as serious researchers, because like I don't post anything, as I mentioned to you guys before, that's not pretty solid stuff. And if I don't come across any solid stuff, I don't post it, and that is okay. And if it takes me 6 months to do it, then that's what I do. I know the guy who filmed a documentary on the snow leopards. 4 years. 4 years it took him to film the snow leopard. And he didn't film it for 365 days of a year for 4 years. He filmed glimpses of it. That's fortitude. I know there's some pretty good damn researchers that are online that have some pretty good fortitude. in regards to their patience, and regards to some of the stuff that they have done, because I've watched it, to discipline themselves, to wait in the forest, to be there in certain areas. So when I look at this area here, the first thing that made me suspicious that I might be wrong with my hypothesis, remember there's a part of my brain that doesn't want to be wrong on this one, because I was so excited about what I was seeing and stuff, again, because of what I was hearing online. But there was a couple of things that didn't sit right with me, and the first thing was about bear scat and grizzly scat being in this area. If the Sasquatch was hanging out here, I can't see bear scat and grizzly scat hanging out here. The same way I noticed the bear scat dissipated when the grizzly scat appeared. How do you know the difference? Tracks. If there's this much activity in this area, there should be tracks. Tracks are facts in my books. If you don't find tracks, you're not searching a right area yet. You need to verify the area by finding a clear track. Nothing Mickey Mouse. So what do? I come up here on a regular basis. I notice up the forestry road up here, there's a fella who's chopping wood. And so I bumped in and I talked to him a little bit. And I said, have you ever noticed anybody down this cut line? And he later on notified me, yeah, actually I have. I actually witnessed a couple of families going down there one time. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I came down here after he had mentioned that to me, came down to the area. And what I had found over here, and I do have it on video, but I didn't want to show it because it's kind of graphic for some people, is a fawn that has been killed and skinned and left here. And that was the same time when I came here and all this stuff had changed. And some of you might have seen that post when I went, they're back. And I thought they were back because all the sign here about moving stuff and that must mean it's a Sasquatch. Why? Because that's what they tell us online. The watermelon setup was gone, the watermelon was gone. And then what ends up happening down the road is, right on, might actually have a native person that's coming in here. Nope, they're just driving through. But, I was trying to get one of the First Nations to come here to do this for you, but the timing didn't work for them and myself. But, so then I do come down here later, and sure enough, there's a family down here, 2 families, and they have been doing this area for a long time, and it's to train the next generation about, their traditions, their structures, like this one right here. If you remember this one here, there used to be some bars that were across this area. I'll post a picture of that on here. And I circled it in red and I sent it out to everybody and says, does anyone have any structures that look like that? Because that was that cultural imprint thing I keep ragging on. There was something about that, the way those sticks were, that was a cultural imprint to me that is a door flap holder. And that's exactly what it is. It's a door flap holder. When you're seeing the moss that's around the perimeter base here, when you're looking at this stuff right here, this is all man-made. You see this? This is man-made, period. The moss is put in not just by First Nations, Europeans, old-timers, trappers. Everybody does this who's a human being. I don't know why a Sasquatch would build this. I don't have any evidence that Sasquatches build this. I certainly don't know any First Nations that I have talked to so far, and I've traveled this year. I mentioned to you guys about traveling everywhere from my location, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, the coast, Harrison Lake, Alberta, and I try to stop into the First Nations to get educated and show them pictures of this stuff and get them to help me understand how to educate myself about what I'm looking at. Now I want to tell you, there's stuff I've come across. Some of you have seen these weird tree things. I'm going to call them that. I think this is the best way of calling it. Instead of calling them structures, they're weird tree things. And they look like they have meaning to them. But they don't look anything like this. This looks like human to me. And I was wrong. And if I don't fess it up, we have to fess it up because we have people who are trying to be educated. And education is about upgrading, not about looking bad. I've been a moron more than once. I'm sure a lot of people who know me would say, yeah, he's a bit of a moron. Yeah, and so have you. And we didn't die from it. So we're not going to die from this either. So I just want to take you to another area here. Okay? So when I was doing research, this whole, like over winter time, because of course some of this, over winter time I did a lot of research on structures because I couldn't get up here last winter to look for tracks. And I haven't really found any tracks up here. And so I did a lot of, and I think I posted last year, I posted this thing where it showed a whole bunch of structures, and the question for you guys was, tell me which has been influenced by Squatches. And I think there was 2 of you that nailed it on, which was none of them were. But 80% of everybody said, yep, those are structures, Sasquatch structures. Oh, sorry. And that's kind of what we're talking about. How do we tell what it looks like has a higher probability, till we see a Squatch doing it, that's the best we got, a higher probability that any kind of tree activity is directional in that by a Sasquatch compared to another source. So the other thing I came across, which I mentioned in that little structure thing, test or whatever, was fairy houses. Not just fairy houses, but there's a thing that's in our culture. Most of us don't know it. Some of us do now because, of course, you're watching what I'm talking about. Fairy houses and fairy structures look just like what I just showed you. And they're done by kids. Not only that, some schools in North America take their kids out to make fairy structures in the forest. Not only that, I just want to show you this here. When I show you this, there's a thing also that's called historical native structure sites. Historical First Nations native structure sites are structure sites that you will probably find in isolated areas, usually fairly high up in the mountains. They are much bigger than this usually, meaning that the context of the mass of the logs and sticks will be much, much bigger. They'll be white usually. And what those are, and I've encouraged some people before on one of my other videos about, check out American Indian historical structure sites. Don't touch them. They've probably been there for a long time. We're talking decades. And what those are from is for when the First Nations used to migrate across the country to their different areas they would move to during different seasons. They would have things like this that have accumulated. So they didn't have to bring the resources. They always knew the resources were there. A lot of those sites today, unfortunately, have been abandoned. But if you come across them, you should definitely notify your First Nations or Indian American bands so that they can have that for their own historical archives and stuff along that line. So whenever you come across something like that, that's your first clue it's going to be First Nation. I want you to be really solid about when you're doing your research. So how do I know this is all First Nations? They told me, the people who built it. In my travels this month, or in the last 4 months, every place I came that had supposed tree structures that at one time when I first started this process I would have said was Sasquatch, were all done by humans. How did I find that out? Was talking to the locals, finding out who built them, why they built them, and some were kids, and they had some pretty sophisticated buildings. Now again, I'm not saying to anybody out there about your structures philosophy or hypothesis. I am talking specifically to my people in my channel about what this is. And this is not Sasquatch at all. There's no sign here that a Sasquatch has somehow came and mimicked things. There is a fire pit over here, and when I first came, it wasn't used, and it was a big one. Down the road, there are two little ones. Now, the nice thing is, when you meet the people who are here, if you accidentally bump into them, you can just ask them. Film them if you can, which I was hoping to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't get anybody up here today. There's 2 little fire pits down this way, and I showed them. I'll show you some pictures of them. They haven't changed since last year. And what they are kids mimicking adults, having a little fire. We're going to have a little fire here. This is what we're going to do. So they put little rocks around, put sticks on it, but they don't do anything with it. That makes contextual sense, again, to me. We're looking for stuff that makes sense. I would love to read into all this stuff, but it's not going to help me with my research. I need to be wrong, and I need to be okay about being wrong, and I want to be educated, and I want to learn. I need to learn to read the forest, to read the ground, to be able to read prints, to read structures correctly. That's going to take a long time. But once you start cluing into the signs you're looking for, you start looking, you're not wasting time on other stuff. If I'm hunting for a deer or elk or something like that, I'm not just looking for signs. The signs should lead me to what I'm looking to hunt for, which is a deer or an elk. I don't keep looking, oh, look, there's deer tracks. Oh, look at that. That's where the velvet came off the moose over there. Well, that's nice, but I should be able to. Sorry, that bear. That bear's right over here, I think. If I can film him, I will. But I got to be cautious a little bit here. I'll just turn my camera like this so I can keep an eye behind me. Sorry, you guys. But that's what it's about. Listen, if you don't agree with me, it's okay not to watch my channel. I'm not looking for a whole bunch of people to watch my channel. I'm looking for the right people, honest people. And it's going to be hard for us because I'd rather believe something than nothing. Now, I learned a long time ago I'd rather believe nothing than project onto something. And as that comes with that grace, patience, and gentleness, then I'll get the good stuff and I'll weed out the bad stuff. And so as a cautionary note for you guys who watch my channel and that you're starting off with this whole thing, just make sure you slow your process down. Before you post anything online, at least, go online, join some of the Facebook. There's some good people out there. Don't get me wrong. I've met them, and there's some really good people out there. But give yourself 1.5 to 2 years of being online stuff, so you're getting familiar with what's out there that way. The online stuff is not the same as the searching commitment you're going to do out in the bush. They're going to be, you're looking for resource people online, and you're looking for good resource sites to go to online, so that you can throw some ideas back and forth. But it's going to take you some time to do that, and you want to protect yourself a bit. I think that's about it for right now. I wish it was Sasquatch. You guys, with everything in my guts, I wish it was Sasquatch, but I got to stick with the facts. I got to do the research. The other thing to do in an area like this, if you're suspicious someone's there, get a Ziploc bag, put a note in it with your phone number on it, and say, hey, listen, love the structures. If you did these, could you mind phoning me? Because I'd love to talk to you about this. You say it like that in the letter, and you stick it up in a pin over here. And they'll eventually look at the letter, and they might contact you, they might not, but you have to do all that kind of stuff. You have to go to the First Nations, you have to go to the forestry people in the area, you have to go to the loggers in the area, you have to go to the hunters in the area. You got to find out as much information. And again, it's taken me 1.5 years to upgrade this file. I've pulled those videos off after I started to find out some stuff, but this is the update for what's called Jack's site in the Penticton area. Jack and I came in here, seeing what we saw online, what we heard that was happening online. It looked totally like this is going to be a great catch, but it's not. It's not Sasquatch, and that's okay, because I need to train myself so I don't waste time here. As much as this is cool, and it is cool, it's cool stuff, but I'm not looking for First Nations structures. I'm looking for evidence of Sasquatch, manipulation of the forest, pathways, tree kind of weird arrangements. But the key part in all of that, until I find a solid track, I got to be open to the idea that I might be sincerely wrong. I need a track. Tracks are facts. Everything else unless I see it with my own eyes, is a sound in the bush, is a tree that is snapped, and that's not going to help out my cause. Much patience, you guys, much grace, and much gentleness. There is no race here. You're doing it for your process. Take the time you need, be fair about what you're doing, and when you come across something like this and later on find out you're incorrect, it's okay to say it. People will respect you a lot more instead of pretending. In other words, just pushing it to the side. We can find these guys in a non-intrusive way. The same way when I did the Coyote Loon Challenge, and just as for fun, I went and filmed silky chickens crowing. Or cock-a-doodle-dooing. It's high definition cam. I'm on high definition cam. You get 5 minutes of a Sasquatch on high definition cam just like this. Am I fake? No. We don't need to put a bullet in one. Some jerk probably will. But I hope we can do it a different way, and that's film them. But we got to figure out what we're looking at and upgrade the data, whether the system likes it or not. I got to stay true with what I know and what I've seen. And I got to fess it up for educational purposes. That's the bottom line. And I may you do the same. And it will certainly help us, the issue of Sasquatch, especially in Canada, do it a great favor instead of leaving the speculation out there all the time. We need to up our game, and we need to go through a lot of the material that we once thought was Sasquatch, take a serious look at it, and find out, is it Sasquatch? If we haven't seen it, or there's not enough supported evidence to prove it, we don't have to throw it away. Just put it over here for a while until we get more upgraded information, then bring it back in to the solid stuff that what we need to look for when hunting for a Bigfoot / Sasquatch. Sorry, Thomas. I get ragged all the time by my Canadians. Call it a Sasquatch, Leon. Okay, Sasquatch, Yowie, Yeti, Bigfoot, and all the other ones that are out there. There's too many to list. So, anyways, I wish it could be. I wish I could find a nice fat print here. I wish there'd be something here that tells me other than what it is. But I've talked to the people who've built it. I've talked to people who've seen them in the area building it. I've seen the evidence of them coming here and teaching the next generation about their ways in the forest. And I have to tell you guys that when we come across unique stuff, it's okay to post it. Just don't declare it until we find out for sure what's going on. And it might take a year and a half, for instance, this site here. Thank you guys. Really appreciate your support, and just a lot of patience with your process. You're going to want to jump the gun, and stick with the excitement of it, but just keep in the back of your mind you can be sincere, but be sincerely wrong. Thanks.